I moved out of my house. I skipped a family reunion because my parents kept letting it happen. My sister's best friend, Meg, harassing me. I don't know if anyone will ever really understand what it felt like living in that house. People hear crush and think of butterflies and giggles and maybe a little embarrassment. But that's not what I went through. I'm 17, and for the last 2 years, my life at home became something I wouldn't wish on anybody. It all starts with my sister, Lana. She's 15, and she's had the same best friend, Meg, since they were little. Meg was always around, which was never a problem in the beginning. She was loud and talkative and a little too energetic sometimes, but it was harmless. When I was 13, I came out as gay to my family. My parents were supportive enough, and so was Lana. Meg acted like it was no big deal, but I could tell she was shocked. She had a crush on me back then. I knew it, but I figured that once I came out, she'd move on, and we'd all just exist peacefully in the same space. That didn't happen. Somewhere around the time I turned 16, things changed. Meg's behavior shifted, and suddenly I wasn't just the older brother of her best friend anymore. I became her obsession, and it wasn't subtle, it wasn't cute, it wasn't harmless, it was uncomfortable, it was invasive, it was downright terrifying at times. I first noticed it when she started hanging around more. Even when Lana wasn't home, she'd ask when I was going to be around. She'd follow me with her eyes like she was watching my every move. And then she started sitting way too close, touching my arm or shoulder during meals or movie nights. And when I pulled away, she'd pout like I was being mean to her. I tried to brush it off at first, thinking maybe it was just teenage awkwardness. But then I caught her in my room. Not once, not twice, but multiple times. Going through my drawers, taking clothes from my closet, once even lying on my bed hugging my pillow. I confronted her and she just laughed like it was a joke. I told Lana, and she said Meg was just being silly. I told my parents, and they said she was just a kid and had a silly little crush. They told me not to be so serious about it, but it kept getting worse. One night when Lana had Meg over for a sleepover, I woke up in the middle of the night to find Meg trying to get into my bed. She whispered she was scared and wanted to cuddle. I told her to get out, and she started crying. I locked my door after that every night. But that didn't stop her from trying. She'd knock late at night, whispering my name, asking if she could talk. She'd corner me in the hallway or the kitchen, or even outside by the pool. She started accidentally brushing her hand against me, or leaning in too close when talking. And one day in the middle of summer, she undid her bikini top and faced me like she wanted me to react. I was frozen, not out of attraction, but out of fear. She was relentless, and I started avoiding my own backyard just so I wouldn't have to see her. I told my parents again. I begged them to do something, but they just rolled their eyes and told me to stop being dramatic. They said she was just a teenage girl who didn't know how to handle her feelings. I asked Lana to talk to her, and she said I was embarrassing her and making things weird. At school, it wasn't better. Meg started following me between classes and even tried to come into the boys' bathroom once. That time, she finally got into trouble. A teacher saw her and pulled her aside, and later I was asked if I felt safe. I told the truth. I said no. And when my parents found out, I told the teachers. They were furious. They told me I'd made a scene, that I was trying to ruin Meg's life over something harmless. They acted like I was the bully. That was when I realized I was completely alone in that house. So I made a decision. I called my grandparents, told them everything. I thought they'd give me advice, maybe offer to talk to my parents. But they said something I didn't expect. They said, "Come here, pack your things and come here right now." So I did, and I didn't tell anyone I was leaving. I knew if I tried, they'd stop me or guilt me or twist it into another fight. So I waited for a night. Meg wasn't there, packed what I could and left. When my parents found out, they lost it. They called me over and over, told me I was being ridiculous, told me to come home. I told them to back off, and yeah, I cursed. I was done. Done being ignored. Done being harassed in my own home. Done pretending this was okay. Meg and Lana tried to visit my grandparents' house once. They showed up all smiles like nothing had happened. My grandparents shut that down real fast. Meg was not welcome. Lana could come if she wanted, but not Meg, not ever. That was the first time in a long time I felt safe, like someone finally had my back. Like maybe I wasn't crazy for feeling violated and scared. I thought maybe things would calm down after that. But then came the family reunion. The family reunion was supposed to be one of those picture-perfect weekends. Everybody together at the lake house, food grilling, kids splashing in the water, old folks telling the same stories they've told for 20 years. Normally I'd be there. I always was. But this year was different. This year I wasn't just skipping for the fun of it. This year I was protecting myself. When the invite came around, I didn't expect to be included, but my parents told me I better show up and stop being dramatic. They said Meg would be there again to keep Lana company, and just hearing that made my skin crawl. I told them no. I told them if Meg was invited, then I wasn't coming. Simple as that. That should have been enough, but it wasn't. They started pressuring me again, saying I was making a big deal out of nothing, that Meg was just a kid who made some mistakes and I needed to move on. They said skipping the reunion would make things worse, that I'd be alienating myself from the family over something that wasn't even real. Wasn't real? I wanted to scream. Did they think I made it up? The nights I locked my door, the times she touched me when I pulled away, the fear of her following me into the bathroom, the top falling off her bikini like it was some innocent mistake. That was all in my head. It made me sick. I told my grandparents I wasn't going, and they didn't even hesitate. They said neither are we. I told them they didn't have to do that they should go and enjoy the time with everyone else. But they looked me dead in the eye and said, "Someone needs to stand in your corner. We are the ones who will." It felt like the first time someone truly stood between me and all of this chaos, and they meant it. They didn't budge. When the reunion weekend came, they didn't pack a single bag. They didn't even make excuses. They told the rest of the family that they refused to attend any event where Meg was treated like family, and I was treated like a problem when my parents found out they lost it. Again, they said I was tearing the family apart, that I was manipulating my grandparents, that I was acting like a scared little kid instead of the nearly grown man I was supposed to be. They said things like, "Meg's just a girl. She has a crush. You're taking this way too far." And all I could think was, what would happen if I wasn't gay? What if I was straight and she did the same things? Would they still tell me to let it go? Would they still say it was harmless? Or would they finally see it for what it is? Because the truth is, it doesn't matter that I'm not into girls. It doesn't matter that I was never going to return her feelings. She didn't care. She kept crossing lines and pushing boundaries because no one told her no, because my parents let her. They gave her space and comfort and protection, and they gave me nothing. Nothing but excuses. The final straw was when my dad told me I should bring a date to the reunion. He said if I brought a boyfriend, Meg would get the picture and finally stop. I reminded him I did bring someone once, a friend who pretended to be my boyfriend at a party to make Meg back off. And guess what? She still flirted. She still tried to touch me. She didn't stop because it was never about whether I liked her or not. It was about control. It was about being told no and refusing to listen. It was about her obsession and how far she was willing to push it. And nobody in that house cared enough to stop her, except me and now my grandparents. They were the only ones who believed me when I said this wasn't okay, who told me I wasn't overreacting, who didn't tell me to smile and be polite while someone made my skin crawl in my own home. The reunion came and went, and for once I didn't feel like I missed out. I felt safe. I felt respected. I felt like someone finally understood that no should mean no. Even if the one hearing it is just a teenage girl, even if it's just a crush, even if it's someone the rest of the family adores, because no one has the right to make you feel unsafe. Not in your own home, not in your own skin, not ever. After the reunion, things got colder, not just with my parents, but with the rest of the family too. It started with little things. Texts I used to get from cousins just stopped coming. One of my aunts who used to always comment on my posts went silent. Then it got worse. My uncle sent a message to my grandparents saying they were encouraging division, that they were letting a teenager's tantrum dictate family dynamics. I read that message with shaking hands tantrum. That's what they thought this was? Not trauma, not fear. Not me finally setting a boundary after being ignored and dismissed for years. Just a tantrum, like I wanted attention, like I wanted to break up the family on purpose. I stayed quiet for a few days trying to process it all. My grandparents told me to ignore them. They said the family always had a way of circling the wagons around the wrong person, but it still hurt. It hurt knowing that people who watched me grow up were now turning their backs. Not because I lied, not because I did anything wrong, but because I spoke up, because I refused to let it keep happening. My mom called a few days later. I almost didn't pick up, but something told me I should. She didn't say hi. She didn't ask how I was. She said, "Your sister is crying because she thinks you hate her now." That was her opening line, No concern for what I'd gone through. No acknowledgement of Meg's behavior. Just guilt, just trying to drag me back in. I told her I didn't hate Lana. I never did. But I hated the fact that nobody protected me, that nobody told Meg to stop, that Lana sat there and let it happen over and over, and then she said something that made my blood run cold. She's just a kid, Michael. You're the older one. You should have been more understanding. I swear I could hear my grandfather take a sharp breath from the other room because I had her on speaker. And when she said that, he leaned over and said in the calmest, most dangerous voice I've ever heard from him, "You let a child harass your son, and now you're blaming him for not smiling through it. You don't deserve him." My mom hung up without another word. After that, I knew I made the right choice. I knew moving out was never about running away. It was about surviving. It was about reclaiming my own space, my own safety, my own damn mind. Lana didn't reach out, at least not directly, but she tried sending little messages through friends, even through Meg once. As if that would ever work, Meg showed up at my school again. She tried to act like nothing had happened, like I was being petty for avoiding her. She cornered me by the lockers and whispered, "I miss you." I didn't even look at her. I said one word, "Leave." And when she didn't, I told the nearest teacher. This time there was no warning. She got suspended again. My parents didn't call me. They called the school, accusing the staff of targeting Meg and saying I was ruining a young girl's life over a silly crush. They still didn't get it. They never would, but I didn't care anymore. I had my grandparents, I had peace. I had nights where I could sleep without locking the door, and that was everything. After Meg got suspended again, things escalated fast. My parents showed up at my grandparents' house unannounced, banging on the door like they were the victims of some huge injustice. I was upstairs when I heard them. My grandmother opened the door, and I could hear my mother's voice shaking with fury. "How dare you let him weaponize this situation against a child? You're turning him into someone cold and vindictive." My grandfather stepped in before she could say another word. He didn't yell. He didn't even raise his voice. He just said, "You're lucky all we did was take him in and not file a police report." That shut them up for about 3 seconds. Then my dad said something. I'll never forget. If he doesn't come back now, he can forget being part of this family. I came downstairs at that point. I looked them both in the eye and I said, "Then I guess I'm not part of this family anymore." I could feel my hands shaking, but I didn't back down. My dad looked stunned, like he didn't expect me to have a spine, like I was supposed to crumble under the weight of his words, but I didn't. Not anymore, I told them everything again. All of it out loud in detail. The touching, the breaking into my room, the pool incident, the bathroom at school, the fake boyfriend Meg still tried to flirt with. I laid it all out in front of them with zero sugarcoating. And you know what they said? My mom looked at me and whispered, "That's not how she meant it." She's just confused. I asked them both if they would say the same thing, if the roles were reversed, if a 15-year-old boy was breaking into their daughter's room, stealing her clothes, trying to crawl into her bed in the middle of the night. Would they still say he was confused? Would they still say it was innocent? They didn't answer. They just left. And I haven't seen them since Lana tried texting a few days later. She said, "You've changed. I don't even know who you are anymore." I typed and deleted my reply 4 times before settling on this. I changed because I had to, because you all left me no choice. She didn't reply. And that was fine, because I had already started to feel something I hadn't felt in months. Relief it was finally quiet. No one trying to force me to accept being uncomfortable in my own home. No one dismissing my fear as drama, just peace. I didn't hear from my parents for over a month. Not a call, not a message, not a single check-in. And honestly, it hurt more than I wanted to admit. Even after everything, there was still that part of me that hoped they'd realize what they did, that they'd reach out and apologize. Not for my sake, but because they should have protected me. Instead, I kept hearing things through cousins that my parents were telling everyone. I'd become entitled, that I was making things up for attention, that I'd turned my grandparents against them, and that maybe I needed professional help. That stung because I had done everything I could to handle this the right way. I asked for help. I begged them to listen, and now I was being painted as unstable, as some kind of drama-obsessed teenager with a grudge. But you know what? I stopped caring about what they told everyone else, because my grandparents had my back. They believed me when no one else did. They defended me without question. They gave me the safe space I hadn't had in years, and that mattered more than any rumor my parents could spread. Then the invitation came, the family reunion at the lake house. The one we all used to go to every year. I thought for a second about going, just to prove I wasn't afraid. But then I saw her name on the invite. Meg, she was going to be there to keep Lana company again. And just like that, the panic came back, the tightness in my chest, the fear of her showing up in some bikini and trying to sit next to me, the fear that I'd be cornered. Again, I showed the invite to my grandparents. They didn't hesitate. They said they wouldn't go either. They didn't need a second to think. They just said if they're choosing her over your peace again, then they can enjoy the reunion without us. That was the moment I realized something important. Family isn't just blood. It's who shows up for you. It's who listens, who protects you when things get ugly. And I had that now, even if it wasn't from the people I was born to. The reunion came and went. We stayed home, spent the weekend cooking together and watching movies. It was peaceful but not quiet, because the fallout came fast. Apparently some relatives started asking questions at the lake house about why my grandparents and I didn't show. And when someone let it slip that Meg had been invited, people started connecting the dots. One of my aunts called me days later. She said she'd had no idea things were that bad. She apologized, said she wished someone had told her sooner, that if she'd known she wouldn't have gone either. More calls came after that, a few cousins, an uncle. Even my mom's sister, they were all reaching out, not just to say sorry, but to tell me they were furious with my parents because they'd been told I just ran off for attention, that I'd exaggerated everything. And when they heard the real story, some of them said they felt sick. One cousin told me, I have a daughter your age, and if a boy was doing to her what Meg did to you, I'd call the cops. That hit hard because that was all I ever wanted. Someone to admit that what happened to me mattered, that it wasn't just a phase, that I wasn't being dramatic, that it was wrong, period, I won't lie. Some part of me wanted my parents to hear what everyone was saying now, to feel what I felt when they abandoned me, to finally see that they were wrong, but they doubled down instead. Lana posted some vague stuff online, something like people always twist things to make themselves look like the victim. She was trying to shame me, trying to guilt me into silence. But I didn't bite, I didn't even respond, because I'd already spent too much time defending myself. Now I just let the truth sit where it was, out in the open, where everyone could see it, and I focused on rebuilding my life, my sense of peace, my future. Because the people who care about you don't need convincing. They don't need you to prove your pain. They believe you, they protect you, they stay. It's been a few months now since I left home, since the reunion, since I stopped trying to make people see what they didn't want to see, and life has started to feel normal again, peaceful, not perfect, but safe. And that's something I don't take for granted anymore. Meg hasn't tried to come near me again, thanks to my grandparents setting firm boundaries. And to be honest, I think some part of her finally realized the game was over, that she couldn't force her way into my life anymore. Lana hasn't apologized, neither have my parents. They're still stuck in their version of the story, where I'm the problem, the runaway, the dramatic older sibling who just couldn't take a joke. But I've stopped waiting for their apology because I don't need it to heal. I have people in my life now who show me what real love looks like, what real safety feels like. My grandparents are teaching me that every single day. They stood up for me when no one else did. They made sure I knew that my voice mattered, that my comfort mattered, that I mattered. I'll be graduating soon, and I've already been accepted to a college a few hours away, somewhere new, somewhere fresh, where I can finally be just me, without the weight of all that old pain, without Meg, without the shadows of what my parents let happen. I don't know what the future holds with my family. Maybe one day they'll see what they lost. Maybe they won't, but I won't let their blindness define my worth anymore. I took my life back. I walked away. When it would have been easier to stay quiet, I stood my ground when everyone told me I was overreacting. And I found a version of family that actually feels like family. So no, I don't think I'm the asshole. I think I'm someone who finally chose peace, who finally chose me. And I don't regret it for a second. And that's the story. If you were in my shoes, what would you have done? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read everyone. If this story hit you hard or made you think different, hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe for more real stories like this one. New episodes drop every week and trust me, They only get crazier from here.